Robert Duvall has finally spoken, and Hollywood is stunned. After 6 decades of silence, the 94-year-old legend revealed there were 4 actors he couldn't stand throughout his entire career.
Professional actors, you go in and just jump in and do it, best of your ability.
Let me say, can I say one thing?
Please.
To me, the great Stanley Kubrick was an actor's enemy. And I can point to movies that he's done, the worst performance.
Duvall, long admired as the gold standard of discipline and quiet strength, shocked everyone with this confession. Behind that calm, gentlemanly image, he'd been carrying grudges he never wanted to revisit. In a rare interview that rocked the film world, the Oscar-winning icon admitted, "I've kept my mouth shut for decades, but at this age, what am I waiting for? It's time to tell the truth." His words spread like wildfire, not just because of what he said, but who said it. For Robert Duvall to break his silence after more than half a century proves these old feuds were real and deep. The tension ran deep enough to follow him into his 90s. Sources close to Duvall insist these weren't petty disagreements. These were battles that changed movies, reshaped performances, and quietly rewrote Hollywood history. Imagine how different those classics might have been if peace had ruled those sets. Now that Duvall has finally spoken, Hollywood is buzzing with one question: who are the 4 names he's exposing? But before that bombshell drops, it's important to know why a man like him, known for his privacy and restraint, chose to open up now. Insiders say it wasn't out of bitterness, but reflection, that late-in-life clarity when legacy starts to matter more than reputation. One close associate revealed, he's been watching all these documentaries rewriting history, showing friendship where there was jealousy. That false storytelling ate away at him. The final push came during a tribute meant to celebrate his career. As the crowd cheered, Duvall sat stone-faced, watching scenes with actors he secretly despised. While the narrator praised lifelong respect, I sat there listening to all that nonsense about mutual respect and creative partnerships, Duvall confessed, while remembering how one of them used to step on my lines just to ruin takes, and another tried to get me fired from one of my biggest roles. That was the breaking point. At 94, with an Oscar and a name carved into film history, Duvall finally stopped protecting Hollywood's illusions. Truth mattered more than reputation. He told friends he wanted younger actors to see what really hides behind the glamour, to understand that even the greatest films can be born from jealousy, ego, and pure chaos behind the camera. Then came the revelation that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. The first name on Duvall's list, Dustin Hoffman, the man he once called a friend. But friendship, it turns out, meant something very different to Hoffman. Years ago, the 2 struggling actors shared a small New York apartment, splitting rent and chasing the same dream. "Dustin and I were struggling actors together in New York," Duvall recalled. "We were friends, or at least I thought we were." In the early 1960s, their friendship started strong. 2 hungry young actors pushing each other through endless nights of rehearsals and dreams. But soon, Duvall began noticing something unsettling. His own ideas showing up in Hoffman's auditions. "I'd worked for weeks on a scene," Duvall recalled. "Then suddenly Dustin would get called for the same part, using my exact approach, sometimes word for word. When Hoffman landed those roles, he'd tell people Duvall had inspired him." Duvall fired back, "That's a fancy word for theft." Even as their fame grew, the tension never disappeared. During the making of True Grit in 1969, Hoffman often phoned Duvall for acting advice while preparing for Midnight Cowboy. "I spent hours helping him find Ratso Rizzo's voice," Duvall said. But months later, Hoffman claimed in an interview that he'd developed the voice by studying homeless people in New York, never once mentioning Duvall's help. That betrayal stung deeply. The final blow came in 1971 when both were considered for the French Connection. The role went to Gene Hackman, but what happened behind the scenes was something Duvall would never forget. "That was when I stopped taking his calls," Duvall admitted. "I realized some people never stop taking. They just get better at pretending it's collaboration." Insiders later confirmed his story, revealing that during the French Connection casting, Hoffman went even further than stealing ideas. He allegedly tried to sabotage Duvall's chances completely. Sources claimed Hoffman told director William Friedkin that Duvall was difficult and uncooperative, twisting old theater tales to back it up. "That lie cost me a career-defining role," Duvall said. That crossed the line, from competition to pure sabotage. Years later, Duvall confronted Hoffman directly. He denied it, Duvall recalled, but I heard it straight from Friedkin himself. Still, he never went public. Not then. He stayed professional, appeared at events, smiled for cameras, and even praised Hoffman's work. That quiet professionalism fooled everyone. No one suspected decades of hidden resentment simmering between two icons. But the real shock came next. Duvall revealed the second name on his list, a man once thought untouchable, a legend whose talent was unmatched. Marlon Brando, he said coldly, the most destructive ego I ever encountered. Duvall didn't hold back for a second. He made it clear, in Hollywood, great performances don't always come from great relationships. Sometimes they survive despite the chaos. His tone was sharp, his honesty brutal. That's the reality no one talks about, he said, dropping truth bomb after truth bomb. When he finally said Brando's name out loud, even hardened insiders froze. Marlon Brando, the man everyone called one of the greatest actors alive. Duvall didn't deny his brilliance. He was a genius, no question, he admitted, but also the most destructive ego I ever encountered in this business. According to Duvall, Brando wasn't just unpredictable. He could wreck an entire production just to prove he had power. Their legendary clashes began on the chaotic 1966 set of The Chase, alongside Jane Fonda and Robert Redford. Behind the polished posters, a psychological war was brewing that changed Duvall forever. He revealed Brando's cruel habit, constantly changing his performance every single take, purely to make editing impossible if he disagreed with the director's vision. Brando would intentionally ruin other actors' scenes and call it protecting the integrity of the performance. Duvall called it what it really was, professional sabotage. The tension built until it finally exploded during one of Duvall's biggest monologues in The Chase. Crew members later confirmed what happened. Brando made faint noises off camera, just loud enough for the microphones to pick up, ruining take after take. By the fifth ruined shot, Duvall lost it. I confronted him, he recalled, and what happened next became a lesson I'll never forget. Brando just smirked and said, "Maybe you should be stronger in your choices." Duvall paused, remembering the sting of that moment. "That was Marlon," he said. "He'd sabotage you, then frame it as your weakness, a power move, and a cruel one." For decades, Duvall publicly praised Brando's brilliance, calling him an inspiration, while quietly carrying that bitterness. Years later, they appeared in the same cinematic universe again with The Godfather, but never shared a single scene together. Back then, it seemed like coincidence. Now it feels deliberate, Duvall admitted. "I learned more from watching Marlon than anyone else, but not all of it was good. I learned that genius never excuses cruelty." That mix of admiration and disappointment explained why Duvall stayed silent for so long. But before Hollywood could even recover from the Brando shock, he dropped another bombshell, the third name on his list, James Caan. "Competitive to the point of malice," Duvall said. This one hurt Hollywood the most because their chemistry in The Godfather was legendary. Caan's fiery Sonny Corleone and Duvall's calm, calculating Tom Hagen created one of cinema's most believable brotherly bonds. "Jimmy and I created one of the most realistic brother relationships ever," Duvall said. "And we did it while barely speaking off camera. That's acting, and tension at its finest." Their rivalry started from the first rehearsals. Duvall was the quiet perfectionist. Caan thrived on wild energy, sometimes too much. He was competitive to the point of malice, Duvall recalled. "Whenever I had an important line, he'd do something to steal focus, tapping, fidgeting, anything to grab the frame, anything to steal the spotlight." That tension boiled over during the famous Godfather family meeting scene. What audiences saw as fiery brotherly passion was actually pure rivalry behind the scenes. Few knew that the explosive chemistry between Sonny and Tom Hagen came from a real battle for attention. Tension reached its breaking point when Duvall was quietly discussing Hagen's motivations with director Francis Ford Coppola, and James Caan suddenly barged in with a smirk. He made a mocking comment about overthinking glorified secretary roles. Duvall remembered, "That was the moment I decided we'd never be friends." From that day on, Duvall said he made a choice. Tom Hagen would always keep an eye on Sonny in every scene. That decision gave their on-screen relationship its sharp, authentic edge. What's shocking is how perfectly they hid their feud. For decades, they smiled at reunions, laughed in interviews, and radiated brotherly warmth. When we promoted the film, we both knew what was at stake, Duvall said. We weren't going to let personal tension ruin something that special, so we smiled, told the right stories, and played our parts. That, he added, was real acting. It wasn't the kind of acting that wins Oscars, but it earned respect. That quiet professionalism, choosing to protect the work despite hidden resentment, revealed more about Duvall's character than any award ever could. It also explained why these tensions stayed buried for decades, hidden behind smiles, handshakes, and red carpets. But while his clashes with Brando and Khan were professional, the fourth revelation cut much deeper. This one was personal. The final name on Duvall's list made Hollywood gasp. Robert Redford, the fraud behind the golden image. Redford, the industry's golden boy. Elegant, intelligent, and seemingly untouchable. For decades, he was the symbol of class and principle. But Duvall said that pristine image was nothing more than a polished facade. Redford built the perfect persona, the craftsman, the idealist, the man of principle, Duvall said. But the reality I saw was very different. Behind that charming smile, he claimed, was a cold opportunist, someone who treated crew members like props and saw fellow actors as obstacles. Their feud began on the set of The Natural in 1984, where Duvall played Max Mercy opposite Redford's heroic Roy Hobbs. What should have been a smooth, respectful collaboration turned sour almost immediately. Duvall began noticing Redford's attitude toward the crew. Long hours of waiting while Redford handled personal business. He'd keep everyone on standby, Duvall recalled, not because he was deep in character, but because he was on the phone making deals while the crew just stood there. That's not artistry, Duvall said. That's arrogance. As filming went on, the tension thickened. Their on-screen confrontations crackled with realism because the hostility was real. Duvall claimed Redford's polished image of integrity hid a self-serving agenda. He pressured director Barry Levinson to cut my role, Duvall alleged. He said the scenes where Max Mercy challenged Roy Hobbs weren't necessary. But I saw right through it. To Duvall, it was never about the story. It was about control. He wanted to dominate every frame, he said. The irony was almost cinematic. Redford played a baseball hero questioned by a journalist, while off-camera, he was trying to silence that same journalist's voice. What angered me most wasn't just his ego, Duvall added. It was the hypocrisy, the gap between who he pretends to be and who he really is. Duvall told his interviewer, "The man preaches collaboration, but behind the scenes, he's calculating every move to protect himself." He recalled with disbelief, he'd stand on stage at Sundance, preaching artistic purity, then show up on set demanding final cut privileges and veto power over other actors. The gap between Redford's public image and private behavior left Duvall stunned. It was the perfect Hollywood contradiction, the saint in the spotlight, the tyrant behind the camera. But the moment that sealed it forever came during post-production on The Natural. Duvall confronted Redford about his behind-the-scenes manipulation, and what happened next burned into his memory. In front of several crew members, Redford looked at him and said, "You're a character actor, Bob. I'm a movie star. We're not playing by the same rules." That line hit Duvall like a punch to the chest. That moment crystallized everything, he said. The fraud behind the golden image. From one Robert to another, it wasn't just personal. It shattered Hollywood's favorite illusion of its so-called good guys. Those polished, smiling legends everyone thought were untouchable suddenly looked human and deeply flawed. The golden glow around Redford began to dim, and Hollywood could no longer ignore the cracks. In the days after Duvall's explosive interview, the industry descended into chaos. Shock, denial, and quiet whispers filled the air. Representatives for Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, the only living names Duvall mentioned, released carefully worded statements, expressing surprise at his remarks while insisting they had great respect for his legacy. The tone felt polite, maybe too polite. Behind closed doors, though, insiders began backing Duvall's story. Crew members from The Natural confirmed Redford's controlling behavior, while a former assistant director from The Godfather spoke of the tension between Duvall and James Caan. Even Francis Ford Coppola added fuel to the fire, saying, "The chemistry you see on screen sometimes comes from very complicated personal dynamics behind the camera." That was as close to confirmation as Hollywood ever gives. And the shockwaves didn't stop there. Sources say several major actors have privately reached out to Duvall to thank him for finally telling the truth. "Finally, someone said what so many of us have felt but never dared to say," one actor reportedly told a friend. Duvall's courage had cracked the silence wide open, and Hollywood felt it. As for Duvall himself, he seemed lighter now, not bitter, just free. After decades of silence, he wasn't lashing out. He was simply setting the record straight. "My goal was never to hurt anyone's legacy," he explained. "It was to correct a version of history that's been polished into fiction. I've given 60 years to this industry, and part of respecting it means being honest about the good and the bad." He made it clear these weren't petty arguments, but long-standing patterns that shaped films, careers, and lives. "These truths deserve to be part of the record," he said firmly, "not the glittering myth the world agreed to believe." As Hollywood scrambles to absorb the fallout, one question still lingers. Does Robert Duvall have more to reveal? His final words echoed like a warning. Those four stood out, but they weren't alone. If you were hooked by Duvall's truth bombs, don't forget to drop a comment, share your thoughts, and hit that subscribe. The next revelation might be even wilder.